People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, on today's episode, we have an amazing escape artist and magician. He set a world record by completing 24 escapes in 24 hours. He saw the world touring with legendary magician Rudy Colby as a part of Rudy's team. He currently runs the Hat and Hair Academy on YouTube, where he teaches magic. Everybody, it's Jonathon Bryce. Woo! What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey. Fantastic. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing good, man. Your bio, you have so many things. I just hit on a couple things. We'll get into all those other crazy escapes and stuff, man. But this is going to be fun. I'm loving it.
Oh, I'm excited. When you asked, I was super stoked to come on.
Well, how are things? How are things in Minnesota?
Cold. It's December. It's always cold. They're fantastic here. We got a great magic community up here, and a lot of people, and it's thriving. But yeah, it's get to that point where everyone heads inside and practices magic, reads the books, and watches the DVDs now.
And man, out here in Virginia, so my publicist is in LA, and she thinks Virginia's bad. She's never been to Minnesota.
No, it gets frigid. It's actually been nice. It was about 34 degrees today, so light jacket.
That's not nice. That's horrible. That's just horrible.
Yeah, I got a ski mask on at 34.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't live in Minnesota. That's for sure.
So, how'd you get started in magic?
I got started. I did a book report when I was in fourth grade on Harry Houdini. And I didn't want to do the book report on Harry Houdini. I wanted to do a book report on John L. Lewis, who is the founder of the AFL-CIO. I was very misguided as a youth, and I ended up with Harry Houdini. I read a book on Harry Houdini and fell in love with Houdini. My dad took me to the Outagamie County Museum after I got done with the book, reading the book. And the Outagamie County Museum is in Appleton, Wisconsin. And it's the American boyhood home of Harry Houdini. So there they have, on the second floor of the county museum, the Sidney Radner collection of Houdini memorabilia. And we went through, I saw all the lock picks and the locks and the different artifacts that were Houdini's. Some of them were Hardines. And we got to the gift shop, and my dad says, "You can have anything in the gift shop you want." And because it was Houdini, I found a pair of handcuffs. I said, "Dad, I want these handcuffs." And he says, "No, you want this book on magic." And I ended up, my first magic book was the Klutz Book of Magic, put out by the Klutz Press. And so that's how I got started. And just kind of snowballed from there. It got really hooked into close-up magic. Started watching the David Copperfield specials on television. And back in the old days of VHS, I would record them and watch them in slow motion so I could see what was going on. And that's kind of how I learned.
Or try to see.
Illusion.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of what was going on. I didn't realize, I thought I saw what was going on. When in fact, I really didn't see what was going on because Copperfield was just that good, But
well, and he videotapes it 9,000 times and gets the perfect thing, too. Yeah, if there is a flash.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So what I thought was the method, I went, oh, yeah, that's the method. I learned later on it wasn't, but it was important for me as a young budding magician to think that I had the idea, the method, because it propelled me to investigate further and learn more and more, and started reading books and joined the local magic club.
Well, so that's one of the things I tell Natalie when we're putting together a new show. What do you want to accomplish? Think of something you want to do. Even if it doesn't exist, just think of it, and I'll make it happen somehow, some way. we'll work out a method to
Right.
make it happen. That's the fun part, and that's where you get original ideas from. But when you tell somebody,
absolutely.
think of anything, it's overwhelming. You don't know where to start.
Right. Right.
So I only know magic. I was at my mechanic today, and I feel like an idiot talking to my mechanic because I don't know anything. I know how to pop the hood. I know how to check the oil. That's about it. So I feel like an idiot around him. You mentioned all these letters earlier: ALC, CLU, PLMNOP. What was all that you wanted to do a book report on?
The AFL-CIO is the and I forget exactly what it is. It's the American labor unions. So think Teamsters.
Okay.
It's basically what that was. So here I am in 4th grade, going, yeah, let's do a book report on John Lewis, the guy who paved the way for Jimmy Hoffa.
Wow, that's funny.
And my teacher said, no, you get Houdini.
That's funny.
Me being 4th grade, being bummed out. Man, I really wanted to do the book report on the boring subject.
So Appleton, Wisconsin, they moved from. Help me! I'm blanking out because I'm talking to the expert here. They moved from, is it Hungary? Budapest.
Yeah, Budapest, Hungary.
To Appleton, but then they went to New York. He was only in Appleton for 5 years.
Something like that. I mean, he ran away with the circus for a short period of time, according to legend. When he was in Appleton, the famed the story of Houdini jumping through the ice and as a boy and being trapped. That happened apparently in the Fox River, which runs through Appleton, Wisconsin. And for those of you that don't know where Appleton, Wisconsin is, if you know where Green Bay is, it's about 30 minutes south of Green Bay. So right on, kind of by Lake Michigan.
We drove right by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could see the stadium from the interstate. We were heading somewhere to a gig.
Yeah.
Daggone it. Man, I should have stopped. I wish I'd have known. I want to go back now.
Now you just got to come back up, but don't come in,
December.
Not right now.
We'll wait.
Come up in the spring.
Yeah, let's wait till August after everything's thawed out.
Right.
Yeah. No, I got to come up. Yeah, come up in the fall and Door County. They got wonderful fruit, cherries. Actually, if you like cherries. So.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get your book report done and you join a magic club as a youth? Did you join IBM SAM?
Yeah. I joined the IBM. I was 16 years old. I joined the IBM. A buddy of mine said, hey, there's this magic club that meets down at Twin Cities Magic and Casting.
Now, do I know that because they put out DVD series, the Twin Cities?
Yes, they bought the Greater Magic video.
So I know that from the DVDs popping up. Okay, got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Twin Cities Magic and Costume. So I went down to. They were located at that time right downtown, in their West 7th location, and we went down to the Ring 19, Carl W. Jones. And for you magic book nerds, Carl W. Jones was the editor and publisher for Greater Magic by Hilliard. So if you've got that book, the big tome, that's who our ring is named after, is the publisher, which was published in St. Paul, Minnesota. And my first IBM ring meeting, we had Al Schneider, who is a local guy, or was at the time a local magician for us, doing a teach trick. And me being an idiot, I was at the right angle to see what he did, and he said, did anyone see what I did? And I raised my hand and went, he did this. And the entire room, because I had no idea who Al Schneider was at the time, inventor of Matrix, all that stuff. Everyone in the room turns around and looks at the new kid. Like, oh my gosh, you just called out Al Schneider? Really?
Uh-oh.
So yeah, that was my first ever Magic Club meeting. But I was hooked, joined the IBM locally, and Jeff Williams was a member up here at that time. He was living in Minneapolis. Al Schneider, Suzanne. I don't know if you're familiar with Suzanne, but she's
Foolest winner.
Yes, she's a Foolest winner. She's technically the last student of Al Schneider, and works the castle a lot in Hollywood. I think she's won Close-Up Magician of the Year 3 or 4 times. And so, it was quite a time back in the day.
Wow. So, we had Jeff Williams on the podcast. I love Jeff. Jeff is awesome.
He's a goofy guy. I love him to pieces. He's on a different level altogether.
So funny. Hey, the funny thing about his podcast is in the middle of it, his wife just starts talking, and we're like, "What the heck happened?" And his wife pulled into the garage, and somehow the Bluetooth went interfered, and there's just a whole conversation. And we just thought we lost him. It was just funny. Only Jeff. But Al Schneider came to our club and performed, but I had to work one night, and I totally missed it, and I regretted it. But yeah, there's some great names there. Max Krauss was a friend of yours that you grew up studying under.
Yep, he was up here.
That's a great bunch of guys there, and girls.
And it's funny, because we were all, we had the old. I call them old timers. They're not really old timers. We had the masters, the Jeff Williams, the Max Krausses, the Al Schneiders, the Suzannes. And then there was this group of kids, punk little wannabe magicians. And, named, Jonathon Bryce, Dan Sperry, Justin Flom, and we all grew up together, just kind of doing magic. And, it was, the more I got into it, and I love Dan Sperry to pieces, and I tell people, I say, the best bird act I've ever seen in my life, hands down. This guy just ever since we were teenagers, we'd go to these conventions and we'd do the youth competitions, and I always had to follow him. And it's like, how do I beat Dan Sperry? I can't.
Wow.
The guy is just that good.
And you get to see the evolution of
up here.
And you get to see the evolution of him with the costuming and the makeup. You saw the whole evolution of that.
Yeah. We were kids when he was, clean cut, the 90s spiky frosted hair, with the blue classical coat and tails and no makeup and no platform shoes and
no tattoos.
No tattoos. Well, we were teenagers. You couldn't get them.
Yeah, no, but he's a whole different cat now.
Yeah, he's the same guy, just cooler.
I love Dan. Dan's going to be on the podcast in the new year. I've already talked to him. Yeah, I love Dan. So you're studying, you're hanging out with all these cool people, learning from all these great guys, and then you went to was it a national IBM convention where you met Rudy?
Yeah, I met Rudy in 1997. The International Brotherhood of Magicians Convention was held in Minneapolis. I was working as a magician in a restaurant at the Mall of America, hanging out with a guy by the name of Doc John Deems. And I don't know if you know that name. He used to be an old school mechanic for the Mafia. Real deal card mechanic and card cheat.
Oh, wow.
But he was running the magic counter at the magic shop at the Mall of America. And I was thinking about going to my first national, and he encouraged me to go. So I went to my first national in 97 and worked as a stage hand for the evening shows. And I got to know the guys like Dale Heinman, Dale Salweck, who were running the evening shows. And they liked me so much they invited me to come back in 1998 to the IBM convention in Los Angeles and work for them. So they paid for my convention registration. I had to buy my own airfare. While I was out there, I met Shimada, and asked if I could study under Shimada.
Wow.
And he had to think about it. And I think James DeMare was working with Shimada at the time. And while he was thinking about it, I went back to my hotel room, and my roommate, a guy by the name of Bruce Cleland, who I just saw a couple of years ago for the first time in like 20, at the SAM convention in Vegas. He comes back to the room and he goes, "Hey, you're not going to believe who's on the floor in the dealer room. It's Rudy Colby." And I'm like, "Oh, God, I got to see this. I got to go meet the guy." I mean, I have his poster from his Image comic release. I love the four legs routine. No idea how the neon door is done. Puppet Boy's the coolest thing ever. And so I put my shoes on and I raced down to the dealer room in '98 at the IBM convention. And Rudy didn't have his hair up. So the only way I was able to find him was walk up and down the aisles looking at everyone's shoes. He always wears checkers pants.
Right.
And I saw him, I walked up to him, and all I wanted to say was, "I want to shake your hand. You're a huge inspiration to me. Thanks." That's basically all I wanted to say, because I'd already asked someone to mentor me, and I was waiting for their decision. And that's not what came out of my mouth. I looked straight up at Rudy, and I blurted out, "Will you mentor me?" And
Wow.
he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
Wow.
And I went, "Really?" And he went, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And I gave him my hotel number, and he said, "Let me talk to his wife at the time." And what I didn't know is he needed some help for a tour that he was coming up. And I told him I didn't want to get paid. I didn't want to, I just make sure that I eat, have a place to sleep, and I'll work the show for free. I want to learn from you. That was my conditions, And he said, "Not only will I take you around the world, I'll feed you and put you up, but I'll pay you." And Rudy taught me a lot. But that was the beginning of how I met Rudy. And I've had some fantastic adventures with Rudy. I mean,
Wow. I don't know what else to say.
Taking me around the world, yeah.
So 97, I'm graduating high school, and I probably watched Rudy Colby's act, his Fox special. He had 2 of them.
Yeah.
It was on a loop on my VCR. I mean, I watched it all the time. World's Greatest Magic specials, Copperfield specials, Rudy Colby specials. It was on a loop constantly in my magic room, man. And I wrote Rudy a letter when I was, 17 years old, and he wrote back.
Yeah.
And I just told him I loved the flow of the show. It was to me, it was a perfect show. It was different, original, neat. It was awesome. Such a cool guy. And then you get to go travel the world with him.
Yeah. And he's there's a lot of magicians out there that aren't genuine, or disingenuous, because there's the mystique of the magician. I know things that you don't. Rudy is what you see on TV. That is exactly who he is in real life. Maybe not as hyper, but he is just as cool, driving down the 405 in Los Angeles, listening to Devo, as he is on TV,
Wow.
And my first job with Rudy, I had to learn the show.
Now, was this before or after the specials when you're working for him?
This is after.
After both of them.
Yeah. I mean, well, I've done a lot of television with the guy.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But I had to learn the show. I learned the acts that I was in from the guy I was replacing. His name is Bob Self. And Bob, he currently runs a company called Baby Tattoo out of Los Angeles. Really cool kitschy 1950s artsy thing, but kind of on the edge, almost like Hot Rod.
Were you the nerd character?
Nope, that was John Simone. That's John Simone plays Adam.
Okay, yeah.
I was back behind the scenes in a lot of it.
Okay.
When we were on tour, I played Elvis.
Okay.
So the act where he shrinks Elvis down.
Yeah.
I played Elvis. Dr. Mambo, the big ape-like gangster character.
Yeah.
Did that. I was lab assistant number 1. So anytime there was just a random guy carrying a stanchion with a lab coat and sunglasses on, that would have been me, But mainly I did a lot of pushing of props back behind the scene, making sure, lights turned on, because contrary to popular belief, the lighting just doesn't magically happen. There's someone back there with 2 cords in each hand going click,
Wow.
So I do that. Fire confetti cannons, that was always fun, try not to hit anyone. But so I was on stage, off stage, but I learned my acts at the castle, and that was the first time I ever went to the castle. It was in 1998, learning my act in the Palace of Mystery. So that was wild. And then I came home for a week, and then flew to Monte Carlo, Monaco, where we performed at the Monte Carlo Sporting Club.
Amazing.
And,
Golly.
18 years old, it's crazy. It was absolutely nuts.
Yeah, you win, man. My 18-year-old, I was headlining a sideshow. I thought I was something. You're traveling the world, going to Monaco and hanging out with Rudy. I'm nailing nails up my nose, eating fire, thinking I'm something.
Well, 18 in Monaco, I was already broke, because I didn't have a real summer job. I didn't have a job.
Right.
Just graduated high school. And so I had a whole whopping $500 to my name and go to the richest country on the planet, with $500. You can buy like a bottle of water,
Goodness.
So, but yeah, and that was really wild. And I remember they said, because we're going to do the Elvis act, and Rudy, they said, we have the swing that comes down from the fly loft. Let's lower Elvis from the ceiling. I'm like, whatever, dude, So we're doing the show. We do a couple run-throughs. It's cool. The Sporting Club stage overlooks the Mediterranean. I got to tell you that right off the bat. And the walls in the house drop into the ground, and the roof rolls off and turns into an amphitheater.
Yeah.
So it's the night of the show. The royal family's in the audience, all sorts of celebrities. I'm 18. I'm pinching myself. Have no idea how I got here. And I get into my Elvis costume. I run up to the fly loft, and I let 2 French guys who don't speak English get me into this swing. So I step off the catwalk to guys going, "Je te suis de this one." I'm going, what? And we get into the swing.
What? That's me.
Yeah, right. What? I don't know what you're saying. That's funny language, I get into the swing. We start lowering me down. It's a very slow ride. And Rudy's doing his thing on the stage. I'm watching a boat go by on the Mediterranean. And when I say boat, people go, oh, like a pleasure yacht. And I'm going, no, like a billionaire's yacht, like
Wow.
the biggest boat you've ever seen. And I'm like just dumbstruck, I'm like entranced watching this boat come by. And all of a sudden the spotlight hits me. And I'm like, oh, I must be at the stage. It's time to do my job. I'm going to unbuckle my seatbelt and dance like, a goofball. And I unbuckle the seatbelt from the chair, and I'm not at the stage.
Oh,
I
no.
jump out kind of in the, my feet shoulder width apart, like a power pose, like Elvis would do, and I'm like 10 feet above the stage.
Oh no.
And I fall 10 feet into the splits. And because I'm 18 and flexible and like a rubber band, I snap back up and I'm in pain. But I do the act, you know, and that was wild.
Oh
that was I'll never forget that. It's like I'm 10 feet above the stage and I pop out early, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
You didn't break anything. That's amazing.
What did Rudy do? Did he snap his head back, or he just keep going? Didn't know? Did he know?
Oh, he kept going. I don't think I think he knew. You know, it was. What do you do? It's live entertainment. You just keep going.
You just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told a story about
each other afterwards.
I told a story about me running through an audience at a resort, and some kid spilled a drink, and I skipped the steps, and I jumped from the dance floor onto the stage every week at this resort, and some kid spilled a drink, and my foot just slipped, and I bear hugged the steps. And I felt like I sat there for a couple seconds, but Natalie says I popped right up, and I finished the line I'm supposed to say. And after the show, people said, "You do that every week? You just keep going. You don't stop and I mean, why? You just go."
You can't.
Is Rudy from Minnesota as well?
No, he's from upstate New York.
Okay,
originally.
Because I know Nick Defat played his Adam at the Castle, and Nick Defat is from Minnesota, working at the big mall that you were talking about and everything. And I didn't know if you guys all knew each other as well.
Yeah, I know Nick. I knew Nick when he was, you know, a teenager in high school.
Wow.
You know, actually, Nick. The last time I saw Nick was at the SAM convention in Vegas before the pandemic.
Okay.
And Nick, the first time Nick and I actually met, we were working the local IBM holiday banquet. And I had just gotten done doing Buried Alive in full view for Music is Art Festival. And so I came back. I said, let's do Buried Alive in full view. You know, the people love it. And Nick was the MC. And I can't tell the story like Nick tells the story. But he says there is this bald, crazy guy getting into a box, having dirt put on the top of it. The box was locked. And we all stood there and watched this box do nothing for 15 minutes. It was the greatest act I've seen, you know? And because it did nothing. Nothing happened for 15 minutes. We saw a hand come out, you know, covered in dirt, you know. But yeah, that was the first time I actually officially met Nick and worked with Nick, was at a local IBM gig. And then we started getting to know each other. He did a lot of work with Bizarro. I don't know if you're familiar with Bizarro.
Yeah. That's when I first met Nick. Nick was with Bizarro at MAES in New Jersey. They were together at the convention.
Yeah, Bizarro, you know, there's another cat that's just absolutely, you know, out of this world, magical thinker, you know. I mean, I don't want to say he's the Andy Kaufman of magic thinking, but he's like out there like Andy Kaufman. You just go, where do you come up with this stuff? That's so cool, you know?
Yeah.
But, and I saw Nick. Nick filled in and played Adam with the Rudy Colby show when we did that at the SAM convention.
Okay.
And so it was fun to get back and see him. He had just come out with his book, Funny, which if we haven't read it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Nick's a great guy. I like Nick a lot.
Yeah.
So talking about, we've covered your everything up to traveling around the world and all that, and I know you could talk about Rudy for the next 30 minutes. But I've done an upside down straitjacket escape, tied to my ankles, hoisted, 55 feet in the air. I've done a 100-foot rope escape countless times. I had the audience tie me up. But I'm a magician doing escape. You know what I mean? You're an escape artist. Hearing about your escapes freak me out, and I'm in the business, man. Tell everybody about some of the stuff that you've done.
Oh boy, what haven't I done? It's better to. I got into escapes only because of my love of magic and Harry Houdini. So I've always done a straitjacket escape. That was the first thing I bought when I turned 18. Was a straitjacket from the Old Town Magic Shop at the Mall of America. I raced out of high school. I was only 2 miles away from the magic shop. Bought my straitjacket for like $300. So I've always done it. I had been doing magic and touring my own illusion show for a number of years. I was, at the time, married to my first wife, and I was just getting really burnt out on the show, the same show over and over again, doing fairs, festivals, and I wanted to take a break. And my wife and I at the time, my ex-wife Mel at the time, we weren't doing so well, so we were in the process of kind of getting a divorce. Actually, not kind of, we were getting a divorce. And she signed me up without me knowing about to do the Worldwide Escape Artist Relay. And so we got divorced. I was done with magic. I had packed all my props away, and I kept getting emails from Cliff Gersman. What are you going to do for the Worldwide Escape Artist Relay? Every day. And I just hit delete. Finally, one day, my dad looks at me. I was really depressed. He goes, just do it. You like it? Just do it. I said, okay, I'll look at it. So I looked at it, and I saw what everyone else is doing. I'm going to get out of a pair of handcuffs in my backyard. I'm going to do a straitjacket escape, standing on one foot, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I went, come on. I've worked with Rudy. I've been on some of the biggest stages in the world. I could do better than this. I mean, get out of a pair of handcuffs? Come on. So I was watching the TV show 24 at the time, and I'm like, I'm going to do 24 escapes. That's what I'm going to do. 24 escapes in 24 hours. And so I posted that. I had no idea what escapes I was going to do. I just knew that every hour I was going to do another escape for the next 24 hours on that day. Wow. And I get a call from a guy by the name of Dr. David Adamovich. And he's from England. And he was the president at the time of the Record Holders Republic. And they're like the second largest record holding house, like Guinness is. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I really like what you posted. Would you be willing to do that in 24 different cities? And I said, sure, why not? He goes, and how many escapes are you going to be doing? I said, I don't know, 5 or 6. I just figure I'd cycle through the 5 or 6 that I know. He goes, could you do 24 different escapes in 24 hours in 24 different cities? No one's ever done that. We'll give you a world record. I went, wow. Sure. I'll do that. So I set out to start doing, coming up with all these different escapes. So I would do, thumb ties and handcuffs and all sorts of different things. And none of it was real flashy or spectacular. It wasn't really big. It was meant to be quick and fast because I had to drive now, and right. Driving in 24 different cities in 24 hours can be pretty hard. I'd given myself like 10 minutes per stop to do the escape so that I could get back in the car and drive to the next spot. Yeah. After I did that, I did a show with the escapes, and it was okay. People were like, wow, that's really cool. But it wasn't the reaction that I wanted. So I said, you know what? Let me look at other things. I had talked to Rudy. Rudy had shown me a copy of the Genie issue for Steranko. The Steranko issue of Genie. And I devoured that. What he was doing in there, the things Steranko was talking about, blew my mind. And it was daring. It was dangerous. It was fun. And I said, that's what I want to do. And I said, how do I do this as a magician? Because they know me as a magician. They're going to go, oh, it's just a trick. It's just a trick. And so I was talking with another friend who said, you should talk to John Bushy. And John Bushy before he passed, was one of the world's foremost authorities on Houdini, and he lived in Duluth, Minnesota. So I contacted him, and he said, it's easy. Do what Norman Bigelow does, and do it in the open. So I did. I started figuring out ways to do things like handcuffs out in the open. Instead of hiding behind a curtain like, the Handcuff Challenge Act says, stand behind the curtain so they can't see what you're doing. I did it out in the open. I fashioned my picks. I did picking and shimming right out in the open. I showed people how I was doing it. And that started getting people really excited. And I didn't get into the really daredevil stuff, the dangerous stuff, until 2009. I was doing my escape act at Seaver's Corn Maze in Shakopee, and they said, hey, you want to do a publicity stunt? I said, yeah, sure. What do you want to do? They said, we don't know. What do you think? I said, hey, you got this pit of corn over here. Why don't we build a coffin? I'll get locked into it. We'll get buried in the corn, and I'll get out. And they said, sounds great. I'm a city boy. I don't know anything about corn. It wasn't until after I failed, I did fail, and the reason I failed is because I don't know anything about corn. It wasn't until after I got out and had learned more about corn that the number one killer of farmers in America is farmers that fall into their grain pit, specifically corn, because it's trapezoidal and it locks together. And they actually suffocate with their head above the corn.
Oh, wow.
Because it compresses. It's like a boa constrictor. Because it's the shape that it is, it gets, as you breathe in, it gets smaller and smaller and compresses you. And so I'm very lucky that I lived, but it explains why I didn't get out, because when I got out of the coffin and I started to dig through the corn, it interlocked and I couldn't move. So I had to be rescued. But it only steeled my resolve to do more, because when I got rescued, I had 4,000 people that had come to watch this. They were like, the look on their face was amazing. They were like, holy cow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I watched a guy get buried in the corn, and he almost died, but he's fine. And it was just an amazing amount of applause for failing. And that's always been, boggled my mind.
So this is just making me go crazy right now. My blood pressure is going up. You failed, but it was awesome. But I'm sitting here thinking Evel Knievel failed practically every daggone time, and it was great for him. Wow. Did you feel bummed, or you felt elated that you were alive and everybody was clapping? You felt, both. What was your feelings?
I was my ego was bruised because I didn't get out.
Right.
I was fallible. I wasn't the master escape artist that I thought I was. And it hurt my ego. It bummed me out. I was, but it also was probably the best thing for me at that time, because I realized that because I failed, I didn't do enough homework. I didn't learn what I needed to learn about corn. I didn't learn about the escape, on how to actually do it. I didn't plan. And that's really the important thing about escapes, that when I talk to other individuals that are trying to get into escapes, I say, you really got to plan.
Yeah.
You can't just grab a straitjacket and some rope and a crane and hang upside down. You can, but you got to think about it too. How are you attaching yourself? Why are you attaching yourself this way? What is your safety? What's the wind conditions like? What's the condition of the winch cable? What's the condition of the operator of the crane? Is it a bucket truck? Is it a hook crane? Is it a sky crane? Is it, all these things? What kind of insurances do you carry? What kind of indemnification do you have? Those are things that I'd never thought about when I did the Buried Alive in 9 tons of corn.
Right.
But it also said, hey, I failed, but I learned a lot. I tell my kids all the time, I say the most important thing that you can learned is failure is not the end-all be-all. As a matter of fact, you can learn more from failing than you can from succeeding. And so if you fail and you learn, did you actually fail?
Right.
I failed and learned. So did I fail? No. Wasn't successful in what I set out to do, but I learned a lot about what I needed to learn. So I started studying more about what I needed to do. I came up with some great ideas. It was that failure and that danger, though, that really got me hooked on the danger aspect of it. And to be honest, so that everyone knows, I don't have a death wish. I don't want to die. Everything that I do is now very much like what Penn and Teller's philosophy is. You know, we don't do anything that's more dangerous than sitting in our living room chair. You know, mine's not quite that safe, but what I do, I spend a lot of time rehearsing. I spend a lot of time understanding, working with. I'm very confident in what I do currently. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get hurt doing. I could get a little hurt, but I'm not going to be seriously hurt. But I became fascinated with cheating death at that point too. And that's when I came up with the only escape that I've ever retired, the suicide chair, which is, I had originally got the firearms because I wanted to do the bullet catch. I was studying the different methods of the bullet catch. I had read Ben Robinson's book, 13 Have Died, and I wanted to do a bullet catch. And I was in contact with Carl Skeens at the time, learning remotely before Zoom and that type, the Skeens method for the bullet catch, which was made famous by Carl Skeens and then made famous again by David Blaine when he did his bullet catch.
Wow, okay.
But I never got to the bullet catch. Things happened on a national level with school shootings, and I said, this is going to be inappropriate to do. You know, I can't, in good conscience, walk out on stage with a gun and have someone fire it at me with everything that's going on in the world. So I shelved it, and then came up with the idea for a suicide chair, and that was, here's a chair that I get strapped to that's got a loaded Colt 45 revolver on a pole aimed at my chest with handcuffs threaded through the trigger guard. And I've got to get out. I've got to get out of the handcuffs without running, bumping the trigger and shooting myself in the chest. And I did that. The first time I publicly did it on the radio. I was asked to go on the 93X morning show, which is a hard rock and roll station here in the Twin Cities. And I was never asked back.
No.
But it's on YouTube. You can see it online, me getting out of that. And I did that on October 6th of, which is my birthday, of my 30th year. So, 42 now, so 12 years ago I did that.
So the video
birthday.
Is that of you at the radio station, or is the video of one of your other times doing it?
There's probably a couple videos of me doing it. There's one of me doing it at the 93X. It's called the Half-Assed Morning Show. That's the first time I'm doing it. The second time I ever did it, I did it at a burlesque show in Minneapolis. And then the third time I did it at a radio station again in Buffalo, New York. And Robbie Takak of the Goo Goo Dolls handcuffed me and cocked the gun live on the air. And that was, So those are, and I did it a couple other times that didn't get videotaped. But I've only done that escape about 5 times. And it just got too dangerous. It's uncertain, You're staring down the barrel again. I can deal with some uncertainty. The uncertainty of pulling out the wrong card is fine. The uncertainty of, getting bumped while you're handcuffed to a gun, that's scary.
Or God forbid, an earthquake.
Right, exactly. I mean, you just don't know. You know, all sorts of things can happen.
So, with all of this craziness going on, what do you think you learned business-wise from Rudy the most? What was your biggest takeaway?
Business-wise from Rudy?
Yeah.
You just do your show. You know, make your show. So the biggest thing that I learned from Rudy, and I don't know if this is more of a performance thing or if this is a business thing. I think it's a little bit of both. Don't do anything in your act that you can't fix with stuff from Home Depot.
That's a good advice. Yeah.
You know, if you're doing your act and you're in, you know, the middle of nowhere, but there's a Home Depot or a Lowe's or any hardware store, you can go in and you can buy what you need to fix your props and get through the show. You're golden, you know.
Yeah.
But if you've got a beautiful Abbott's sawing and you can't fix it because of the custom nature of it, you're out of luck, you know.
Well, that's out of the show. You're missing 10 minutes of your show.
Right, exactly. You're down, and you got to come up with something else. And I learned have a whole bunch of stuff that you can have in reserve. You know, because what happens when something goes down and you can't fix, or that gets if you're jetting around doesn't arrive with the rest of your props, off the cargo plane.
Right.
You got to know what to do. You got to have something to do, and just to work. Do your show. Don't be afraid to go out and do your show for $1,000 or for $500 or for free. Just go out and work. Because if you work, you're going to get paid. You might not get paid that night, but you're going to get paid. And there's many different ways to get paid. You can get paid with money. That's preferred. But say you need something else. Maybe you need a computer. And you're working for, doing a show for IBM. You can say, hey, you know what? You can either give me money or give me a computer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways. That's what I've learned the most from Rudy is be very flexible in what you do, and just do, get out and do.
Yeah, I apprenticed under a guy, and the main thing I learned was just the setting up, the taking down, and the business behind the scenes that nobody sees. That was the biggest thing, because that would have taken years
Right.
to figure out.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't teach that. The shaking hands and the really getting to know people after the show, and you guy that hires you.
Right.
Nobody sees
Right.
that part. So yeah.
And no one sees. That's the other thing. No one sees the rehearsal.
Oh no.
Everyone sees the show. That's where we're having fun. That's where we're playing. I mean, you know this. I know this. We work in rehearsal so we can go play on stage.
Yeah.
That's our fun time. That's not work. That's play. Work is making the phone calls. Setting up the appointments and making the bookings and cashing. Sending the letters out to get the money to keep you rolling.
And getting to the gig. This weekend,
gigs, yeah.
This weekend is supposed to take 3 hours to get to the gig, and it took 7, and just traffic was brutal. So yeah,
Oof.
that's stress. That
Yeah.
nobody sees that,
Yeah.
So I let them
Yeah.
know when I show up. 7
right,
hours.
Exactly. The best book Rudy ever gave me would be Hustle, The Magic of Business by Joel Bauer. And I have that book to this day, and I read it religiously. Even though I'm not actively, booking engagements right now, I still read it. And that's, that meant a lot to me, because that meant Rudy really wanted to see me succeed. And I did, because of him,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and you telling me that, Rudy says just work, and figure out the pay, and, people seeing you, and that might lead to other gigs, but just work. Now that we've went through a pandemic, all these magicians that haven't worked for a year, they all learned that lesson. They had to learn it the hard way, though. because now
Right.
they're not as crisp on their acts. They haven't been working, and they didn't want to go virtual. They didn't want to make that left turn, and now they're all struggling.
Right, right. And then and in the pandemic, I felt I was lucky. I mean, I got out of the biz to raise my kid. Um, I had, my daughter when 2009. She was a year old. I did a couple more gigs after that, after 2009, select shows, stuff like that. But I really got out so that I could raise my daughter. And I got a job in an industry, security. I became a locksmith. Go figure. Escape artist supposed to work being a locksmith, right? And I was fortunate, and just before the pandemic hit, I kept my finger in magic enough. I kept my subscription to Conjuring Arts Resource Center, so I could read the history of magic. I really like history, and because we can't know where to go without knowing where we've been. And I was reading an article in their periodical by Max Maven about slum magic, the food cans and the Chinese sticks and all those props. And I was like, this is really cool. I should get back into it. And my kid said, hey, you should. And I picked up a deck of cards and some coins, and I tried doing the sleights and the magic tricks, and my brain knew what to do, but my fingers had forgotten. And I seized up. I couldn't do it. And that's when my kids started laughing at me. And so I laughed back at her because that's the kind of dad I am. And she said, you should practice. I said, I should. She says, you should do it on YouTube, because she likes watching YouTube. I said, why would I do that? She says, it'd be fun. People would watch it. And so that's how the Hat and Hair Academy came about. I said, okay, yeah, I'm going to teach myself magic, and I'm going to document it. I'm going to put it on YouTube. And I'm not very popular on it, but it's fun. It gave me a reason to practice, during, just before the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit. And then just before the pandemic hit, I was ready to go back out and start booking. I was like, I got a show. I'm going to go do this. And I might cut back my hours from my 9 to 5. And then the pandemic hit, and I went, I don't think I'm going to do any bookings right now. So I was very fortunate, but I watched friends. I watched Rudy, have to go and scale back what he was doing, because there was no place to go do a show, so he was doing virtual lectures. He was doing things, overseas via Zoom. I watched Nick Defat go do some work in Texas. My friend Spencer Horseman, ended up having to become a medical examiner, it broke my heart watching all my friends who had shows no longer have a means to support themselves. Some of them were very fortunate and said, you know what, I'm going to put out material and I'm going to, sell stuff. I'm going to sell books. I'm going to sell props. I'm going to sell tricks, and I always tried to make it a point to buy stuff from those people, just because we didn't know when it was going to end. I'm very happy to see that a lot of people did start doing Zoom, started making that left turn, as you say, and saying, this is a new way to do shows, and now we have a whole other market that we can use, Jim Steinmeier, actually, the Impossibilities book series, he was done with that. And then the pandemic hit, and he's like, well, here's the virtual magic Impossibilities. That's fantastic. It's great.
Wow. All right. I didn't know that came out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah. And now that things are getting back to normal, I'm very excited to see, my friends do shows back in Vegas. Dan is back doing his shows every Wednesday at the Griffin in downtown Vegas, and Rudy's doing shows, and Nick is just finishing up a residency in Chicago. I'm very happy to see all those people getting back to doing what they're doing,
Well, I mean, there was even big name magicians that were, on Facebook, it knocked some of them out. They were teetering on retiring. They just said, I'm done. I'm not going to try to go virtual. I'm not going to try to do this. I'm not going to try. I'm done. And then,
Right.
some of them were actually, talking suicidal. I don't know.
Right.
They were talking about, magic is my life. I can't do what I love. So what's the use living? And it's like, oh my gosh, people, we got to do something. We can't have
Right.
this. This is, yeah. I was
Right,
very
right.
lucky. I was very blessed during all this, and I got a great support system, and we had money in the bank, and we were able to knuckle down and get through it. But man, some of these people.
Well, and didn't you do your appearance on Fool Us during the pandemic, or did it air during the pandemic?
We filmed March 2020, and on the plane ride home, they shut down all buffets in Vegas. By the following weekend, we lost 150 shows, something like that, within 3 days. Yeah.
Wow.
We usually do 183 shows June through August, and within a couple days, we had lost 150 of those, and then the phone calls and emails kept coming in. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and that's tragic.
But I started the podcast. I have listeners in 39 different countries. It's top 1.5. It's top 1% in globally of all podcasts.
Goodness.
It's doing really well. Our television show is now in syndication. Everything's. Luckily, we had other things going on. We started our nonprofit, and we're getting that off the ground. And it's all magic, but just diversify, man. Yep.
Well, and that's the beauty of magic, is because there's so many different avenues. There's so many different ways to do what we do. You can do a podcast. You can talk magic. It's fun sitting down and going, hey, how did that? Look at that sleight. That's pretty cool. Last night I was on some virtual Zoom Society of American Magicians meeting with my friend George G. out of New Jersey. And I saw a card force I'd never seen before. It was the coolest thing, and they taught it. And I'm like, that's so simple. I went upstairs. I showed my wife. She was like, that's awesome. Can you do the dishes now? And then I showed my kid, and she goes, Dad, I don't know how to tell you this, but I really don't like it when you do magic for me. No, she was floored too. But there's so many different ways to do what we do.
Yeah.
And magic for me has given me a way to think about the world differently. I'm able to look at something that may be a hardship. Say, how can I make this different? How can I turn it to what I need to do? And it's what you're doing. Hey, we can't do a show, but we can do a podcast.
Yeah.
Because we're going to do that in our living room. Lucy Darling. I can't do a show, but I can do a Zoom show. It's fantastic. People are going, well, I can't do a show, but I can sell a book.
Right. Yeah.
I can tip a trick and sell a trick. I can keep the money flowing. I can expand the art. It all just takes thinking different, and that's magic teaches that, and it's the coolest thing ever.
Well, I think you're pretty cool, man. Thank you for being on here tonight. You were awesome.
Oh.
We didn't even talk about your other escape from the electric chair. We'll have to get you back on and talk about that. Talk about more. Come on.
Man, I got stories, man. I got stories.
Well, we'll get you back on. You were awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
everybody, check out the Hat and Hair Academy on YouTube, and Hat and Hair HARE on Instagram. Jonathon, thank you so much, man. You were awesome.
Oh, thanks for having me, Wes. This was great fun.
Hey, stay on the line real quick. I have 2 plugs, and I'll talk to you in a second.
Okay.
Our television show, Wes Iseli's Magiclife, has now been picked up by Golden Media Syndication, and they are selling our show across the country. So check your local listings to see if we're in your area, and if not, ask your local cable provider, and hopefully we will be soon. Also, check out wesiseli.com for our show merch. That's logo t-shirts, TV podcast t-shirts, Magic Man hats, stickers, playing cards, and more. See you next week. Check us out online at wesiseli.com and patreon.com/Wes_Iseli for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.